Back in October 2009, I posted to YouTube some video of the model railway that I was building based on Wadebridge on the North Cornwall line. I've moved the line to the opposite side of the River Camel from the real North Cornwall line, and so my station is called Egloshayle. I'm hoping in the not too distant future to be able to bring you some more video of the railway actually operating, but for quite a while now I've been working on some developments to the signalling, and it's the detail of the signalling that I want to explain and show you now. The scenario that I've postulated for Egloshayle is that, like Wadebridge, the station was originally controlled by east and west boxes, but at some stage subsequently the London and South Western Railway, which operated the line, decided to have a rationalisation scheme and control the whole of the station from one signal box. To this end, they built a brand new brick signal box into their Type 4 design, large enough to accommodate a mechanical lever frame. But part way through the rebuilding process, the decision was taken to make Egloshayle a test location for the recently invented low pressure pneumatic system of operating points and signals. This of course did away with the need for very large mechanical lever frames. It did away with the need for large runs of point rodding and signal wires, lots of obstructions outside that could cause problems for staff on the ground. And the system in reality was subsequently used by the LSWR quite widely, including at Salisbury, which was the last large-scale installation to survive. So the east and west boxes at Egloshayle were closed, and the new brick box was equipped with a draw-slide lever frame to control the new low-pressure pneumatic signalling system. One of the things that was needed, of course, for this system was the supply of low-pressure compressed air. And so another change that the London and South Western instituted at Egloshayle was the construction of a combined locomotive coaling stage and compressor house. This, of course, was a sensible move because in the early days, of course, the compressors were steam operated, but latterly, of course, they've been changed to electric motors. But the same little compressor house built onto the coal stage still serves to provide the compressed air. And you can see there the coal stage with the little compressor house and the old chimney from the original boiler. And then moving round to the right, you can see the large air receivers. One of the things with the low pressure system, of course, is that as it used air at fairly low pressure, then you did need quite a large quantity of it to keep the system operating, and the air receivers can be seen in the background there. Both points and signals could be operated by the system. Signals had a single acting cylinder which pushed the arm to the off position, and when the air supply was cut off, the arm restored itself by gravity under the weight of the arm and the combined counterbalance weight. And this is the Egloshayle starting signal going towards Padstow, and if you look part way down the post you can see the air cylinder which drives up to the counterweight and then would operate the signal arm. Points, of course, require a double acting mechanism because the switches need to be thrown to either position. And here in the sidings you can see one of the machines that operates the points with the air cylinder at the nearest end. Of course, a lot of control equipment was associated with this system, and if we pan round you can see there a couple of the line side cabinets that can contain the various valves and pieces of equipment to operate the point machines. So, having seen how the signalling system operates, let's actually look at the signalling that's provided at Egloshayle. Here we're looking towards the bridge that carries Trewerda Lane over the line, and you can just see the two adjacent smoke stains. What we have here is not a double track running into Egloshayle, but two independent single lines. One which runs to Bodmin, and the other one which is the main North Cornwall line going on to Halwell Junction and then on to Oakhampton. And just there you can see the two starting signals for the two lines, and you notice on the post of the starting signal towards Halwell Junction not only the operating cylinder for the air system, but also a diamond sign which indicates that the line in rear of that signal is provided with a track circuit. If we swing round, we can see the two adjacent tracks coming in, and they eventually arrive at the bracketed home signals. Again, there are two of these. One is for the Bodmin line and one for the line from Halwell Junction, and there is some detail. You can see a typical 4 rails for the main post, and at the bottom an interesting little cabinet. If we look at the signal itself, it only has 2 arms, one which reads into the main platform, and that's the platform that's used by North Cornwall services, and the second lower arm which reads into the loop platform, which is used mainly by the services that run to and from Bodmin North. But there are no signals, no arms to permit shunting moves. So what we have at the bottom of the signal is a little cabinet which has a shunting bell inside it, and these were quite common over the old LSWR lines, and basically what you had is a bell plunger in the signal box would ring the bell in this cabinet, and similarly the crew of a train standing at the signal could use a plunger on the cabinet to ring the bell in the signal box. And what they used to do is, instead of having shunt signals, there was a code of rings for particular places in the station, for example into the down yard or into the loco shed, and when the signalman had set the route into that particular location, he would send the code on the bell, and that would authorise the movement past the main signal at danger into wherever it was supposed to go. As we swing round further into the station, we have the junction point work. Again, you can see there a point machine and the associated line side cabinet. We have the corresponding home signal off the Bodmin line, and then if we look across the tracks, you'll see there a stone lined recess, rather overgrown now and filled with ballast from track work. That was the recess where the old east box used to stand. One of the reasons that many stations had two signal boxes years ago is because there was an official limit on the distance at which points could be operated from a signal box. Eventually the limit was extended up to 350 yards, but in the days when that limit was much less, then it was quite often the case that an extensive layout would need a signal box at each end to control it. We've come further into the station now, and in the corner of the picture you can just see the modern signal box, and this is the up main in a home signal, a bracket signal, again standing on a main post made out of 4 rails, as the Southern Railway were very fond of. The taller arm is for the main North Cornwall line to Halwell Junction, and the lower arm on the right hand side takes a train across the junction point work and onto the Bodmin North line. Right, we're here looking at the end of the main down platform at Egloshayle, and on the right hand side you can see a set of points that leads into the down yard with its associated point machine, and then just nearer on the left hand side is a ground signal. These are usually used to control shunting moves, and in this case you can see it has a white half disc with a red band, so it is a definite stop signal and it must be cleared before a movement can be made past it. If any signals like this are in the route for a train from a main signal, then the disc signal has to be cleared before the main signal can be cleared. It isn't permissible for a main arm at clear to read up to a disc signal at danger. Within sidings, of course, it was often the case that there might be a head shunt or similar line that would allow shunting to proceed clear of the main line, and obviously it would be rather awkward for the signalman if every time an engine wanted to shunt up and down a head shunt he had to operate a disc signal. So in such circumstances, instead of being provided with a half disc with a red band, the ground signal would have a little yellow arm like the one that you can see here, and basically for working in the sidings themselves, a train could, or an engine could, shunt up and down past this signal without the signal actually being operated. The signal only reads from the siding out onto the main line. So if we look, that signal would take you along here and then out onto the main line through that connection that you can see there. As long as the shunting was taking place within the sidings, then the signal wouldn't need to be operated. An important detail to remember about signals of this type is that they are effectively a stop signal, because they do have to be lowered for movement out of the siding. And so although the arm is painted yellow, any operating lever in the signal box will still be painted red. Yellow levers in signal boxes only operate distant signals. We're now looking at the Padstow end of Egloshayle station, and that is the starting signal towards Padstow out of the loop platform. That back platform that you can see there can be used by trains in either direction, mostly by trains to and from Bodmin North, but in the old days there used to be a fairly frequent rail motor service from here to Padstow, and in fact if you look there you can see the the water crane that was provided for, or water column should I say, that was provided for the use of the rail motors. And if we swing round a bit more, there's the loop platform starting signal again, and then if we come over here we can see the barrow crossing and the starting signal out of the down main platform heading towards Padstow. I mentioned earlier that Egloshayle was originally controlled by two signal boxes. We saw the site of the old east box, and this little building here is all that remains of the west box. It was quite common at places where signal boxes were abolished that if they were fairly close to the station and so could be made usable in some other form, that the building would be retained, or maybe the top would be taken off and a new roof put on the base, and it would be turned into some kind of store. And that's what's happened here. This is the stone base of the old box, and if you look just above where the grass is growing in front of it, you can just see the edge of the old cutout in the bottom of the wall where the rods for the points and the wires for the signals used to come out. And swung round a little bit more, looking towards Padstow. There's the up home signal. The highest arm reads into the up main platform, and the lower arm reads into the loop platform. And then at the bottom we can see the shunting bell cabinet, and also a disc signal here, which reads into the sidings. And then there is the single line curving away towards Padstow. Now, if you're particularly eagle-eyed, you might have noticed that the rails on Egloshayle are looking rather dull. That's because I haven't run any trains for quite some time, because I've actually been working on a properly interlocked lever frame to operate all of the signals and points. That's more or less complete now and ready for installation on the layout, and I hope to be able to get trains running again fairly shortly. But let's go and have a look and see what I've actually built to operate this. Right, I've moved downstairs away from the railway into the back room because I want to be able to show you some detail of the lever frame before I actually install it on the layout. One of the advantages with power signalling, of course, is that the signalman doesn't need to be able to exert a lot of leverage to operate mechanical equipment, so the lever frame itself doesn't have to have conventional levers. And in their low pressure pneumatic systems, the London and South Western Railway used lever frames where the levers were actually draw slide, they just pulled in and out, and that's what I've tried to replicate here. My frame is slightly non-prototypical because of course I've had to incorporate all the yard points that would normally be just on hand levers at the side of the track. So if you look here, you can see that the first section of levers are lettered A to G, and then the remainder of the frame represents what would actually have been in the signal box, the real frame. And here the slides are numbered from 1 to 31, and if I move gradually along, you can see all the plates behind the levers. Each plate gives the lever number or the slide number. It tells you what that particular slide operates, and if there are small numbers underneath, then that is what is known as a lead, and that tells the signalman what slides he's got to operate before that particular slide becomes free. So if we look at number 28, for example, from Halwell to Down Main Home, the signalman needs to operate number 24 and number 23 before number 28 will be free. You can see also that each of the slides is individually numbered and painted according to their function. Red for the signals and black for the points. One of the other advantages of power operation is that facing point locks are usually incorporated into the power operated point mechanism, so you don't need separate levers for working facing point locks. Right, here at the back of the frame are all the electrical contacts. And of course I've had to make two different sorts, one that gives a passing contact action for operating points, and that's what you'll see here. One contact broken, second contact broken, so there we get a passing contact to operate the points, whereas signals of course require a simple on-off action. So that's off and that's on. The common feeds for the pointer signals are along the very back of the frame there. You can see the bare copper bus bars soldered on, and then the individual contacts for signals or point motors are on this separate bar along here. It's made of close grained wood. It could be done in metal, but of course the advantage of using a close grained wood is that there's no problem over insulation, and you can see each of the contact slides is individually numbered so that it goes with its right slide in the frame, and you can see that there are studs which come down from the slides, from the actual lever slides onto the contact slides to actually operate them. This wooden piece going across here is a piece that helps to hold the slides in place and also limit the reverse travel of the slide. Forward movement is limited by the contact slide, that side as you can see there. This piece of wood limits the reverse travel, and then here we have the interlocking. Tappet interlocking, originally patented by the signalling contractor Stevens, but such a versatile interlocking that once the patent expired, all the various contraptions that different companies had dreamed up to try and provide interlocking without having to pay royalties to Stevens were very quickly abandoned, and tappet locking became universal for not only mechanical but early power frames such as this one represents. Now, the miniaturised mechanical locking that I've built for Egloshayle is fully functional, and to save hours of work hacking locks out of bits of brass bar, I decided to commission them as little lost wax castings. I take the magazine British Railway Modelling, and there is a firm here in Birmingham called Platorum Design who regularly advertise their lost wax casting service, and I prepared a little master and sent it to them, and they cast me 120 of these little brass locks. They come with the casting sprue on at the back, so that has to be cut off, and the locks just tidied up very slightly, and then they can be soldered to the bars that drive the locking from one slide to another. If you need to make a solid lock where two levers are side by side and lock each other, you can have a solid lock. We'll show you that in a moment. I just soldered two of these back to back with a little spacer piece of brass in between, so it definitely made the job a lot easier. Right, we'll show you some details of the interlocking. I've had to do a little bit of dismantling of the frame to get some of these shots. I've had to take the description plates off. But what we can see here is a solid lock, as I mentioned. Levers D and E actually work the three-way point at the throat of the locomotive shed. And I discovered, because I've used all electro-frog points, I discovered that it was easy to accidentally get a short circuit if both sets of switches were reversed, so I decided to lock the two levers against each other. So you can see lever E, or slide E, is the right hand side. You can see the brass lock between them are labelled D and E, and then D is the slide with the notch on the left hand side. The notches are called ports, and they're cut to the same wedge shape as the locks. And at the moment the lock is driven into the port on E, and if I operate slide D, you will see now that if the lock tried to move to the left, there is nowhere for it to go, and so slide E cannot be moved. If I push D back, the port comes back into line, and now if I pull E is free and the lock has been driven across and is locking slide D, so D can't be pulled. And that's probably the simplest bit of locking you can do. Usually, of course, locking isn't quite that simple. There's an example here. Slide number 2 is for the home signal reading into the loop platform, and it requires slide number 4 pulling because number 4 operates the points. But if I try to operate slide number 2, I can't move it at the moment because number 4 hasn't been operated. But if I pull number 4, you'll see now that the port has moved down into position here, and if I pull number 2, you'll see now that number 2 has not only been able to be pulled, but it's also driven a lock into the slide for number 4, so I can't put the points back. And also there are locking functions further down the frame, and you can see the long bar that actually carries the functions from one position to another. What you can't see, of course, is that as well as these bars on the top, there are also bars with locking underneath the slides. So the locking is actually quite a lot more complicated than it looks here. Right, well, we've seen the interlocking operating on this model frame. Perhaps we ought to have a look now at how you work out where the interlocking needs to be. Just incidentally, if you want to go somewhere and study interlocking in detail, one of the best places is the preserved Exeter West signal box at the Crewe Heritage Centre, because the type of lever frame that box is fitted with, the locking is all visible underneath the signal box, and you can actually watch it operate, and there's also a little demonstration model that you can have a go with that shows you exactly how tappet locking works. Anyway, let's have a look now and see how we work out what the interlocking should be. Right, the first thing you have to have before you start planning interlocking is the track layout for the station with all the points and the different types of signals shown, and all of them individually numbered. The general convention was that all the signals for one direction of travel were grouped at the one end of the lever frame, all the signals for the other direction were at the other end, and then points and shunt signals were grouped in the middle part. As I said, with Egloshayle I'm slightly non-prototypical because as well as having all the main points and running signals on the frame, I do have the yard points as well, but they're not terribly much involved in the interlocking. When you've got your numbered signalling diagram, you then need to sit down and draw up a locking table, and this basically tells you what each lever needs before it can be pulled, and what that particular lever actually locks. So if we look here, we can see down the left hand side the numbers of the slides in numerical order, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. If we look at number 1, the first column says released by, and there's nothing in it, so in other words we don't need to pull anything to work lever number 1. We start of course from the premise that all of the slides or levers are normal, so if all the slides are normal we don't need to pull anything to release number 1, it's already free. When we do pull number 1, it will lock 3 slides in their normal positions, number 4, number 10 and number 25. It won't lock any slides in either position, and it doesn't actually release anything. So those 2 columns have got no entries. So let's take a look at something else. Let's take lever number 3 for example. That's the disc. If you're coming from Padstow, that reads from the single line into the sidings. So it's released by 5, which are the siding points, and if we look below for number 5 it says released by 4, so we have to pull 4 and then 5 to release number 3. When number 3 has been pulled, it locks the slide for 6, which is the discs for coming out of the siding going towards Padstow, and it also locks A and B, which are 2 of the hand points in the siding, to make sure that the route is correct. Again, like number 1, it doesn't lock anything in either position, and it doesn't release anything either. But we have got some releases there, so let's see what that's for. And in fact I think that's probably for number 4. Let's have a look at number 4. Remember, all the slides are normal, so 4, there's nothing in the released by column, so we don't need anything, we don't need to pull anything before we can pull number 4. When we pull number 4, it locks in the normal position the slides for 1 and 26. 1 is the up main home signal, and obviously when 4 is pulled that takes us into the loop platform, so we don't want to be able to operate that. 26 is the starting signal out of the down platform, and if we could pull that then we could run through the points and damage them, so we need to make sure that that is locked as well. Locks in either position, nothing again, but this time we do have some releases. It releases 2, 5 and 27. So what that means is if we pull 4, it releases number 2, which is the home signal for going into the loop platform, or it releases number 5, which is the points for going into the siding, or it releases 27, which is the starting signal out of the loop platform. And then to help us keep track of where we are, we've got all the lever numbers down the right hand side as well. So basically you have to work your way through working out what does a slide lock in a normal position, what does it lock in either position, and what does it release. And when you've done that, then you can start drawing out the actual locking chart. Right, what we have here is the actual locking chart for Egloshayle. Some people call it a dog chart because some people call the little brass locks, dogs. You can see the long, thin vertical rectangles. They represent the slides, or the tappets, as they're known. The long lines going across represent the channels for the locking. There are 4 horizontal channels that you can put locking in: 1, 2, 3 and 4. And in fact, if you look at the channel 4 there, you can see that solid lock between D and E that we saw operating earlier on. We looked also earlier on at some locking between 2 and 4, I think it was, and you can actually see that there. You see tappet number 4 with the port at the top. You see number 2. If you try to pull number 2 now, that lock on the left hand side can't move out because it's joined to the lock that is on the right hand side of tappet number 4, and that's what that straight line with the little black circles represents. So you can see if 4 is moved, the port will move down, and then when you pull 2, the lock on the left hand side will move out, and it will pull the lock on the right hand side of 4 into the port, and so 4 will be locked. The lines represent the bars joining locks together, and where the lock is actually fixed to a bar, that's where you get the little line with the little black blob. You can see there are 2 lines at the top. Those represent the top bars. Those are the ones that we could actually see when we were looking at the frame. And then the black lines that are underneath, they represent the bottom bars. Those are the bits of interlocking that we can't actually see because it's all pretty much hidden. As you can see, even for somewhere like Egloshayle, the locking is quite complicated, and it was quite an art working it all out. A number of people, of course, would be involved in the working out of interlocking because it's absolutely safety critical, so several pairs of eyes need to look at it just in case a mistake has been made and is overlooked by the first person. And this chart, which was very kindly drawn for me by a friend who used to be a signal engineer, is what I used to construct the interlocking that you saw in the frame itself. Well, the next job is to mount the frame up on the layout and get the wiring connections made. So hopefully the next clips I'll be able to show you will show the frame in position and operating. Right, here we can see the draw slide lever frame actually set up into the layout now, and forgive the rather untidy wiring at the moment. That's just wired up temporarily. I've got to tidy all that up, but it is operational now, so we'll show you some of the items working from it. We saw the signal starting away from the down platform towards Padstow previously, and if I set the route now for it, you can hear the points go over there, and now here goes the signal. These are operated by actuators that I built using memory wire, and they give a rather nice action, very reminiscent of how signals operated from the pneumatic system, with a rather slow action going back to the on position and also when coming off. Now we'll have a look at the inner home signal that leads out of the up platform and off towards Halwell Junction. You'll notice that I have rather cheated with the signals, because although they've got balance weights on the posts, I decided not to make those operate. I decided that the less moving part, the less likelihood there was of things giving problems. And we'll just show you the action of some points from the draw slide frame. These are the points leading from the down main into the siding, so there's actually 2 points operating simultaneously. A nice positive action. The points are all operated by Pico motors, but they're not actually mounted onto the point themselves. They're the motors with the extended pin, and they're mounted separately underneath the baseboard, so that if anything goes wrong with any of them, I can remove them for attention. So that's about it from Egloshayle at the moment. I've still got 1 or 2 jobs to do to finish this off. I've got to tidy up the wiring to the frame now. I haven't fitted the ground signals with any operating mechanisms, although the slides are there in the frame and they're all properly interlocked. The jury's still out on whether I actually make those operate, because they're such small items that they're hardly visible, so I'm not entirely sure that those will ever get to be operational. I've recently taken delivery of a pair of the specially commissioned well tanks from Kernow Monorail Centre down in Cambourne, and those will be on the layout shortly, so I'm hoping that the next video that I'm able to bring you will show some of the everyday action at Egloshayle. So thanks for watching.